This is Letsile Tebogo, and one of the things that a lot of people will notice about him when he's running is he has a very unique running style. You'll see he has a lot of back end like mechanics. You see a lot of back kick, and this is something that's coached out of a lot of runners, which is understandable. But he's doing something unique. I'm not saying that most sprinters should take this approach, but this is something I'm starting to see that's not that uncommon in lean, elastic sprinters that are elite. And here's what I'm going to point out. Okay, so it's actually easier seen on the side view here. Okay, so when you see him contact the ground, what he's the reason you see so much back kick on him is he's actually contacting the ground in front of his hips. Okay. Boom. Okay. So when you see his hips, you see where his foot is contacting the ground? He's contacting it well in front of his hips. That's allowing him to actually stay on the ground a little bit longer. See, he's contacting it here, and he's actually pushing on the ground a little bit longer. This gives him a larger force ground reaction. His total force under the force curve is going to be longer because he's actually got more time to push on the ground. This is not what you normally want sprinters to do. What we typically coach sprinters to do is, if you see this guy, I can't think of his name right now, but if you watch him, he is contacting the ground. Fambula. If you look at Fambula, he is contacting the ground right under his hips. This is how you coach it. Boom. Right under the hips. That is to decrease the time you spend on the ground. And you see, when he contacts the ground, look at where his knee is. He's in a figure 4 type position. See, most of these guys are contacting the ground in that manner. This guy here, in lane 3, look how he contacts the ground. Boom. Pretty much right under his hips. He's not quite on the ground there. And then when he strikes the ground, he's actually contacting a little in front of his hips as well. He's also a lean guy though. Let's see. So a lot of these guys that have this back kick. See the back kick he has here? He's contacting the ground in front of his hips, allowing him to push on the ground a little bit longer. Interesting that Fambola is not doing that. He's going right under his hips, so then he ends up in his figure 4 position here because he's contacting the ground right under his hips. But let's get back to Letsile. So when he's contacting the ground, again, it's in front of his hips. So he's staying on the ground a little bit longer to push to get more force on the ground. Boom, he's on the hips are here. Contact is here, still on the ground. So he leaves the ground way behind here. The reason this is effective for him, see, he's contacting the ground here. And look how far back his leg is. This is not how you coach it. Oh my gosh, this is so different than when you coach. But the reason this is effective for him because his limb speed is so good. He's got these really thin legs and he's whipping them around quickly. He's able to whip these thin legs around. He's probably super light. I wonder how much he weighs. It'd be interesting to see. I bet he doesn't weigh very much. His strength to weight ratio is probably, his power to weight ratio is probably very, very high. And he's able to whip those legs around in this huge wheel very, very quickly. So his turnover doesn't suffer because of this. So most people, if you try this technique, what's going to happen if you're hitting this far in front of you, and you're staying on the ground this long for this distance, this contact distance is so high that what's going to happen is your turnover is going to be very slow. You're just going to rob Peter to pay Paul. But with a thin athlete like this, his impulse on the ground, his initial strike on the ground probably isn't that powerful, but it's powerful in relation to how light he is and his weight. And he's able to whip his legs around at such speed and velocity. And that wheel is turning so fast that he's able to get away with this. Apparently this guy is too, and this guy is too, because they have a very similar type of approach. Another thing I want to point out is his posture. He's got that Usain Bolt posture. He kind of does too. He's kind of just leaning forward, but see, he's kind of, back is arched, giving that anterior pelvic tilt. But this allows that force vector when that wheel comes around to have some horizontal vector to it. Right? So when that big wheel's coming around and around, it's pushing him forward. That was really interesting. I'm going to look at Gout next. I wonder if he's doing something similar, because he's a very similar build guy. I wonder if he's using something very similar, a similar technique and approach to his speed. Boom. Front of the hips, staying on the ground, whipping around, huge wheel. It's interesting.